Welcome to the Homeschool High School podcast, brought to you by Seven Sisters Homeschool.com and the Ultimate Homeschool Podcast Network. I'm Vicki, and I am so excited to talk about another of my favorite topics because any homeschool high school topic is one of my favorite things. So, anyway, let's talk about a timeline for college bound homeschoolers. So, we want to talk about what needs to happen in ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade in an overall view. So, not every single identifiable course, but an overview of what needs to happen every year so you can kind of structure your next 4 years if you're just starting out homeschooling high school. So, this is here to develop your confidence, not develop a guilt trip, because it's really important for you to remember there's not one right way to homeschool high school, and your job is to homeschool in the way that's right for you. So if you're like in 11th grade and haven't done all these things, you go like, okay, that wasn't what was right for us, because you are homeschooling to homeschool in the way that's best for your high schoolers, not because you're doing what we told you have to do, because we're not your boss. God's your boss, and you are being guided by Him to homeschool in the way that is the best way for your teens. But this is a general guideline, kind of like the Pirates Code, it's a suggestion. All right, so let's talk about then 6 different areas to cover each year. So we're going to talk about academics, career and possible college major development, extracurriculars, service, networking and life skills, and lastly, testing. So let's start out with ninth grade. For academics, what you want to be working on in ninth grade is developing some ability for rigor in core courses. So for kids who are going to, especially to a state college, and if they have any dreams at some of like the Ivy Leagues and the highly competitive colleges, you want to start in ninth grade, really building into their ability to do rigorous coursework. And I will put links in the show notes. And also for those who are watching on YouTube, I'll put links in the comments to the blog posts that we show on how to build rigor on that homeschool transcript. So we want to have rigorous credits in the core courses as much as is right for your teen. Now, kids who are going into community college or some of the colleges that aren't as competitive, they don't need to have highly demanding coursework in all of their core courses. They can choose 1 or 2 each year. And sometimes for ninth graders, that's all they can bear because they're just easing into this high school stuff. And there's not one right way to do college. So don't worry if they can only take on a little bit of rigor in one course. So do you remember what the core courses are? So the English language arts is one, then math, science, social studies, and world languages. So in some states, world languages isn't considered a core course, but those are the basics, and those are the like fundamental courses of education in high school. All right, so rigor starting out in ninth grade. In ninth grade, they will also want to start a little bit of career exploration. Now, some teens are born knowing what they want to do when they grow up. And that is wonderful. That is how God made them. A lot of young people have no idea, and that's okay as well. So in ninth grade, one of the things that you can lean into is new experiences. So field trips to different places you've never been before. Make some science museums and some history, like living history experiences. You could do reading different kinds of books or going to vacation on new places. So any kind of new experience is building your young person's self-awareness, and some of those experiences might be the inspiration that leads them down a career pathway to their college major. So that is interesting. So be curious, have new experiences in ninth grade. All right, extracurriculars. So we got academics, the career and college major kind of initiation things, and then extracurriculars is the next area. So extracurriculars are really important in a well-rounded transcript. It shows to colleges that your teen is not only just an academician, but is also has a well-rounded life, is involved in the community in some way or the other. So if there's an interest that's already there for your teen, count that as an extracurricular, like lean into that. So a teen that's playing sports and loves to do that, that counts as extracurriculars. If they're in the church worship team, counts as an extracurricular. If there are no interests, sometimes they get to, adolescence and they go like, I'm not interested in the same things I loved in middle school. Then what you do is you try out new things, which goes along with the career exploration, major exploration kinds of things. You go and do new experiences, new field trips, and just explore until an extracurricular evolves out of something that you experienced. So there's academics, career and major, extracurricular, and service. All right, next is service. You're going to pick a meaningful one-off or more long-term volunteer opportunities. So keep your eyes out. Our teens need to start developing a life of service, of caring about others outside of themselves. It's just healthy for their bodies and their souls. And it's important to be part of a community. For teens who are headed to college, colleges very often want to see that they have a certain number of hours of service because they want young people who are going to contribute meaningfully to the college community. Service is one way to do that. So yeah, you find volunteer opportunities. So sometimes they're volunteering at church anyway, so that just is happening. But there are so many ways to volunteer. And again, we'll put links in the show notes about how to find service opportunities, either in real life or there's digital service opportunities as well, like citizen science. So we'll put links to our friends at Homeschooling with Technology, and they have some episodes on that podcast on service opportunities for teens in the digital sphere. So there's academics, college and major, extracurricular, service, networking, and life skills is the next category. And so you think about the skills your teens are going to need to live life beyond high school. And starting in high school, it's important to start developing networking skills. So one is meeting new people, how you say hello, how you shake hands, how you start a conversation, how you walk up to a conversation, and also basic study skills. So again, we'll put links in the show notes. We've got at Seven Sisters Homeschool, there are so many blog posts on all of these topics that will help you help your teen. All right, and then the last category is testing. So testing is, in some states, is required. In a lot of states these days is not. No matter where you are, it is available at ninth grade to take the pre-SAT or the pre-ACT for 8th and 9th grade. And then for young people who are taking the CLT, so it's more a classical learning test, they can take the CLT 10 at 9th grade if they choose to do that. So the testing is up to you in most states. So if your state's requiring testing, they'll let you know what is required. So the purpose of testing at this grade, at 9th grade, I always said is just to scare the pants off the kids so that they concentrate on their studies the next year. That those tests are so different than anything they have experienced, it's kind of a wake-up call. And so I know there are other useful things you can get from it, but I always felt like that was the number one reason that they do it. Like, okay, all right, this is serious business here. All right, let's talk about 10th grade. So in academics, they need to keep up rigor in their core courses. If they only did one rigorous core course in ninth grade, maybe increase that to two, especially in areas of their interests. So if they're like a history kind of nerd, really love history, maybe rigor up in that area. So think about, what an interest or a talent might be, and make sure those courses are showing rigor. And again, we'll put links in the show notes to work on how to increase rigor for the transcript. Okay, and then for their college major and career ideas, what we want to do is choose electives that may be exploring one of their interests or talents. You can do that in ninth grade as well, but 10th grade is real important. And also their extracurriculars. If they've identified some interests or talents, make sure some of the extracurriculars that they are involved in are exploring those interests. And then their extracurriculars, you want to choose 1 to 3 extracurriculars each year. All right, so those extracurriculars, if possible, should last for a whole season, like a sport lasts for a season, or maybe for a whole year. So like if they're volunteering at the church nursery or in the church worship team, that's usually the full year. So we want 1 to 3 extracurriculars. So those, now at this age, part of that is just building richness, but part is, like we talked about in the career and major section, is it's helping prepare them for college major choices. So that's all of life is working to ease them into the next part of life. Okay, then there's service. All right, so again, pick meaningful, either one-off or long-term volunteer activities. The further they go in high school, the more important it is to have more long-term volunteer activities. So like volunteering monthly in the church nursery, or weekly in, the Children's Awana program at church, volunteering monthly at the food bank. So a regular thing that shows a level of commitment is what is really, really powerful on a transcript. In their networking and life skills at 10th grade, make sure that they are learning how to use and read nonverbals. So, a lot of teens have already picked up on all that, but it's something to explore with teens. Some teens need to really work on it. What do nonverbals mean? So we can put some links in the show notes. We got lots of links that need to happen with this episode. One of their really, really important things they need to work on by 10th grade is being part of a team. So having group learning projects, even though kids often hate that, or they're working together on a volunteer opportunity or being on a team sport. Those are life skills that are so valuable, especially once they're out there in the career world, that being a team player is absolutely necessary for life success. And then one of the top skills to learn by 10th grade is time management. And sometimes us grown-ups, we have a hard time with that, but it's always a skill we can renew. All right, so at 10th grade for testing, they can take the PSAT, the pre-SAT, and the CLT-10. So those are tests that are open to 10th graders. And by then, it's not just to scare the pants off of them, but to give them practice so that they can go on to the versions that count for them. And so it kind of gets them in the zone. All right. 11th grade. 11th grade is such an important year in the college prep process. So this is the last year where they are really showing off their stuff for the transcript. So colleges really know what they're getting. They pay attention to that 11th grade year. So in academics, they need to concentrate on rigor in as many of the courses as it works for them. So some teens who are not going to big competitive colleges, they don't need rigor in all of the core courses. But if they're thinking a state college or one of the more competitive colleges, there needs to be some level of rigor in a lot of those core courses, or rigor in their electives that help show they're diving deep into an interest that may become their college major choice. All right, for career and major choosing, their electives and extracurriculars, as much as you can, are hopefully building them towards that future college major. If they have not done career exploration and they're still struggling to figure out a college major, this is a year to do a career exploration course, or 10th grade is just as good too. All right, so you want to build the transcript to show depth in their possible college major areas. So electives like if they're interested in marine biology, they will probably in 11th grade take a marine biology course, or in 12th grade, one or the other, showing some depth. So things like that. All right, extracurriculars. They really need to stay with that 1 to 3 extracurricular process for a whole season or a whole year. And especially if they can, have most of those related to their interest or their talent area, their possible college major. For service, the same. Keep building into things that are one-off is okay, but as much as possible, more long-term, showing commitment, volunteer activities, some networking and life skills they can work on are, and 11th grade, are goal setting and planning. They can learn how to use scheduling backwards for big projects. And Seven Sisters has a how-to for scheduling backwards. I tell you, when I learned that, it changed my life. Also to build in the personal skills of resilience, of bouncing back and advocating for themselves. So those are things to think about. Do my kids have some resilience? Do they know how to ask for things for themselves, how to stand up for themselves when they need? For their testing at 11th grade, they have the PSAT and or the SAT. The PSAT they may want to take so that they're in the zone, ready to roll with the SAT. For kids who are pretty high scorers in last year's PSAT, they may want to take the PSAT again, because that's where the National Merit Scholarship competition comes from. Like the winners of that get National Merit Scholarships. So that is it's not for everybody. So very few kids get a National Merit Scholarship. But if you've got a high scorer, you may want to take the PSATs just for the possibility of that. Then the SATs you take in 11th grade so that the colleges know what they're getting into. So not all colleges require the testing anymore, but a lot of them are going back to it. So they had it, then they dropped it, now they're requiring it again. So it's very often a good idea in the fall of their junior year to take the SATs, and then they can take it again in the spring if they're aiming for a certain score, so that they can get a scholarship from a college. So sometimes colleges will have scholarship or grant monies that are related to their SAT score, and that comes from the college itself. So in the fall, and then possibly again in the spring if they need to. Same thing with the ACT or the CLT. Now, lastly, we get to senior year. So with their academics, our seniors, they really need to keep plugging along at least through the fall, because a lot of colleges require them, even if they did early admissions, to send in December or January at the end of that first semester their transcript for a second time. So they will have sent in applications. A lot of young people will be applying to colleges in the fall. So they'll have to send in a transcript showing how they're doing. So don't drop off, during senior year on everything. Sometimes they want to ease back on a few things, but try to keep as much of the core going as is right for the college they're aiming for. In their career and major choices, you definitely want to keep up having extracurriculars and electives that are fitting their career or major choices. And if they haven't chosen yet and haven't done career exploration yet, don't let the opportunity go by. Do that in senior year. Extracurriculars, as much as possible, be building into those interests, and maybe some fun ones, just fun, just for nonsense, for extracurriculars to give a little bit of joy and nonsense to senior year. Then keep going with the service and, fill out those service hours through the senior year. Their networking and life skills for senior year is learning the study skills for college and level studies, so that how to read a textbook at college level. Make sure they are writing their research papers if they're not already doing that. Make sure that they are feeling confident in who they are. One real important life skill is to learn the social and safety skills for college. So I'm going to put links to one of our interviews with my son, Seth, and his wife, Caroline, and they talked about the college safety skills that young people need these days. All right, and then the one thing they need to learn for their own personal growth, so a life skill, is how to self-monitor and self-care. So it would be astounding if I could tell you how many young college students and sometimes adults that I see as clients here in my counseling hat who don't brush their teeth. So, we want to make sure we got all of those skills going, and, that they understand, what am I feeling? Self-monitoring. What am I feeling? What am I doing with those feelings? So ready to go out and manage themselves in the world. And then last is testing. So a lot of times teens have finished all the testing they need. They've been accepted to a college, or they will be at sometime during senior year. They have the testing out of the way, but some teens will need or just desire to take the SATs or ACTs or CLTs again for that last time in the fall of senior year. And that's great. Keep it up. So that's, the kind of thing that's your choice. So that's a look at a basic timeline for homeschooling high school in academics, in career and major choices, in extracurriculars, in service, in networking and life skills, and in testing. Hey, if you've got any questions, we invite you to join Seven Sisters Homeschool Facebook group. In that group, there are so many Seventh Sisters, and they are waiting to answer your questions. So you put the question in the group, and other experienced homeschool moms are going to share what they have learned. And those are the experts that can help you out. So who are the Seven Sisters? Well, at Seven Sisters Homeschool, there are 6 of us founders in the group. So me and Sabrina and Kim and Marilyn and Allison and Sarah. So who's the seventh sister? You are. All right. Remember, there's not one right way to homeschool high school. You do that in the way that's best for your family. And we just invite you to come back again next week. Thank you to Seth Tillman for editing, and thank you all for being here. And we will see you next week.